If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel. And if you're enjoying these stories, there's a link below to buy me a cup of coffee. This is the Chassidic Story Project with Barak Hullman, podcasting from Jerusalem, Israel. This podcast is sponsored by listeners just like you. To become a supporter of this podcast, please go to HasidicStory.com. HASIDIC story.com. You'll never know. You'll never know. You'll never know. You'll never know. Shalom Aleichem, my sweetest friends. I hope you had a beautiful Shavuot. And considering I released the podcast on Wednesday and normally record on Sunday, it's a bit of a squeeze this week. But still, I have 3 stories for you, Be'ezrat Hashem. But before I begin, I want to dedicate this podcast episode to the continued success of our soldiers in battle wherever they are, Be'ezrat Hashem, the returning of all the hostages healthy and alive, the refuah shlema, the full recovery of everybody who's been injured or who is ill, the comforting of those that lost loved ones, and the continued unity of the Jewish people here in the land of Israel and all around the world. The first story is about Rabion Ibashutz, the author of Yarot Dvash, who lived from 1690 to 1764, which is around the time of the Baal Shem Tov. It was the early 1700s, when most of Central Europe and the Jewish communities was ruled by the Habsburg Empire. And the Jewish communities lived under the constant pressure of both the church and the royal family. And in his late teens, Rabion married into a wealthy family, which was in general the custom throughout Jewish history, that wealthy families would marry off their daughters to exceptional Torah scholars. Maybe it's one of the reasons that there's Jewish success in the world. I really don't know, but just guessing. And as a wedding gift, his father-in-law gave him 3,000 gulden, which was the equivalent of what a skilled craftsman could earn with several years of work. It was a very large amount of money. And it was enough money to allow him to sit and learn Torah all day, at least for the first few years of his marriage. Now, Rabion and his wife lived in an area where the church had enormous influence over daily life. And the Jews had to be very careful between their devotion to a life of Torah and mitzvot and the constant threat of the church. And as it was the norm in Europe in those days, the Gentiles of Rabion's town had very little patience or tolerance for the Jews and their customs. But nonetheless, Rabion would sit in the shul and learn all day. He had a chavrusa, a study partner whose name was Aryeh Leib, who was a bit younger than Rabion. And the Gentiles in their town decided to build a huge church right in front of the only shul in the town. Now, this was the shul and the Beit Midrash. This is where the whole Jewish community came every day, 3 times a day to daven. This is where they came on Shabbos and Yom Tov. This is where they learned all day. And now they were going to put this giant church right next to the front door of the shul. The Jewish community, of course, was enraged, but there was nothing that they could do because they had no power. They were simply a minority, and the church and the royal family could do whatever they wanted. They built the church as quickly as they could, and the noise every day came into the shul. Also on Shabbos and Yom Tov, they made sure to build even more when all the Jews were in shul. And Rabion's chavrusa, Aryeh Leib, was so angry, he would see the flow of priests and nuns coming into the church, and how they would look at the Jews with contempt and disgust. And Aryeh Leib promised himself that one day he would avenge their insults. Now Rabion told his friend, "You're just going to get yourself in trouble. It's okay. Be'ezrat Hashem, Mashiach is going to come. It's going to bring us all to the land of Israel, and we won't have to deal with this anymore. But in the meantime, you need to be practical. If you do something, you might get yourself killed, God forbid." But Aryeh Leib could not calm his anger. When the building was finally completed and the ceremonies were over and they started holding services in the church, many Gentiles moved into the neighborhood to be closer to this new church. And Aryeh Leib decided that he had had enough. Late one night, he entered the church, climbed up the winding stairs to the steeple top, where there was a huge cross on top of it, and with a hammer and chisel, he managed to break off the cross and when it hit the ground, it shattered and made a huge sound. One of the priests that was living in the church raced up the stairs to find out what happened. Another priest woke up and joined him, and what did they see? Aryeh Leib, lost in the church. He wanted to run away, but he got lost in the dimly lit halls of the church, and the priest caught him and beat him, and then they locked him up, figuring in the morning they would figure out what to do with him. And the next morning, all of the church officials got together, and they decided they were going to burn Aryeh Leib on the cross for desecrating their church. The next day, Rabbi Yonasan was waiting for his chavrusa to show up, and when Aryeh Leib didn't come, he didn't think much of it. But when he didn't come the next day, then everyone started to worry. And when that full day passed and Aryeh Leib didn't show up, Rabbi Yonasan and some of the other people who learned in the shul saw a priest from the church across the street standing at the front door of the shul. It was the priest in charge of security, and he knew that the Jews would always help one another. And so he came up with a plan to make a lot of money for himself. And he told the small group of Jews that were sitting in the shul at that time of night that if they agreed to give him 3,000 gulden, he would release Aryeh Leib, as long as he fled town that night and never came back. Now 3,000 gulden, of course, was a fortune. And for Rabbi Yonasan, this was the exact amount of money that he got for his wedding gift. And he's thinking to himself, is this a coincidence? Or is Hashem testing him? It's true, it's a lot of money, but Pidyon Shvu'im, the redemption of the captive, it's a great mitzvah. It's one of the highest forms of tzedakah. And so Rabbi Yonasan and his friends, they told the priests, we'll come up with the money. Just give us a little bit of time to put it together. And they knew that it was such a large sum of money, their friend, God forbid, might end up being killed before they raised it. And they didn't have a lot of time. The priest might change his mind if they didn't pay the ransom on time. And the friends went to the community and said, we have to get together 3,000 gulden to save Aryeh Leib. But in the meantime, Rabbi Yonasan decided that he would take the money himself, without consulting anyone, without asking his wife or the community or anyone. And early the next morning, he went to the church and met with the priest. And he said, I have the money, but let me see my friend first. And the priest said, how did you get that much money so fast? Rabbi Yonasan said, it's my money. My father-in-law gave it to me as a wedding gift, but I'm willing to give it up to save my friend. Now let me see him. The priest was very impressed with Rabbi Yonasan. He brought Aryeh Leib to a back door. The two of them hugged one another, and Rabbi Yonasan gave the priest the money. And then Aryeh Leib was set free and told to leave town immediately. And that evening, a group of men came to the synagogue and told Rabbi Yonasan that they had collected a large sum of money for the release of Aryeh Leib. And they were very pleased with themselves, and they were also honored to participate in such a great mitzvah. But Rabbi Yonasan told them that their money wasn't needed because he had paid the ransom, and Aryeh Leib was already safely out of town. But the representatives of the community told Rabbi Yonasan, we'll pay you back. We want to be part of the mitzvah. And Rabbi Yonasan refused. So they said, okay, take half of the money. And still he refused. So Rabbi Yonasan said, save the money for a future emergency. And he didn't take a single gulden of their money. Meanwhile, at the church, the other priests found out that Aryeh Leib was missing, and they went to the priest in charge of security, and he said that the cell had been found open and the young man escaped. But the other priests didn't believe him, and they decided that they were going to put him to death, suspecting he might have arranged some ransom money, which he kept for himself. Now the priest in charge of security heard this, and he realized that he had to escape before the other priest killed him. So he quickly took Rabbi Yonasan's money, along with other money that he had in jewelry that he had amassed over the years in the same way, and he made his way to Rabbi Yonasan's house. At the time, Rabbi Yonasan was not there. Actually, he had avoided coming home for the last couple of days because of what he did with the money. And the priest knocks on the door of Rabbi Yonasan's house, and the Rebbitzin opens the door. And the priest told her how her husband had given his own money to free his friend. And then he said, I can't trust anyone. The other priests are threatening to kill me, and I have to get away quickly. I'm going to give you the money your husband paid me, all of my gold, silver, jewelry, all the money I have. If I come back, I trust that you'll return everything to me, because I never met a person with so much integrity as your husband, and I'm sure you are the same. But if I don't come back, it's all yours. And later that day, the priest's body was found under the town's bridge, drowned in the river. A day later, Rabbi Yonasan returned home, a little worried about how his wife would receive him after he had given away their entire wedding gift, which of course was what they were going to live off of. But to his pleasant surprise, his wife greeted him with smiles and warmth, and she said to her husband, I knew you were a tzaddik, but I didn't know what level you were holding on. I know the whole story, and I'm very proud of you doing the great mitzvah of Pidyon Shvu'im, even giving away all of my father's money. But now look at how much Hashem loves you. He not only returned all of your money, but he's given us a great fortune as well. And Rabion said, what are you talking about? How do you know about the mitzvah? So his wife told him, the priest came here, fleeing for his life. He gave back the 3,000 gulden, plus all of the money, jewelry, gold, silver, everything he'd amassed over the years. And he said, if he dies, it's ours. And today, he was found drowned under the town bridge. So everything belongs to us now. And Rabion's face, instead of being happy, turned to sadness. He began to cry. And his wife said, why are you crying? You got the mitzvah, and we also got all of our money back, and we're richer than we could ever imagine. But Rabion said, no, Hashem threw the mitzvah back in my face. For some reason, he doesn't want me to have my reward in the world to come, where righteous people enjoy their true reward. Instead, he gave me back the money, plus more money in this world. For someone else, this might be a wonderful thing, but for me, it's a punishment. Maybe if he gave the money back over time, but in a lump sum, this is heaven rejecting my mitzvah. So for 3 days, Rabion fasted, trying to understand what he did wrong. And after the third day, before he went to sleep, he did a she'elat chalom, a request to get an answer in his dream to find out why his mitzvah had not been accepted. And that night he got the answer. It was because he refused to share the mitzvah with others and kept it all for himself, that the mitzvah was not accepted in heaven. He shouldn't have refused his friend's money. He shouldn't have refused the community's money. By giving all the money by himself, he was actually taking the mitzvah from others. You see, the money was returned to him to teach him a lesson that when we hoard mitzvahs for ourselves, even if we have the best intentions, we take away their true spiritual worth. And when we share them with others, we allow others to participate in the act of holiness, and we create vessels that can hold infinite blessings. It's sometimes a hard thing to do. We'd all love to be righteous and say, no, I don't want any money from anyone. I'm going to do this mitzvah all by myself. But really, that's not the highest form of doing the mitzvah. You have to let other people participate. You have to accept their money or their help, even if you think you can do it all by yourself. The point was not that Rabion should get the greatest mitzvah in the world all to himself, and that he should be humble, and that he should have self-sacrifice. The point was, even though he wanted to do the mitzvah, and was humble, and had self-sacrifice, all the more so he should let others participate in it as well. And so, my friends, I'll bless you and bless me back, B'ezrat Hashem, that when we have the merit to do a great mitzvah, we allow others to participate as well. I have another story for you. This story was told by a Rabbi Steinharder from Yeshivat Netivot Olam, who's someone who davens and learns in the yeshiva, had a mother who survived the Holocaust, and she was the only survivor of her entire town. And when she was 80 years old, she flew to the United States to attend her grandson's wedding. And in the middle of the wedding, a family member went over to her and said, somebody's waiting for you on the other side of the mechitza, on the other side of the partition between the men and women sections. And so she goes there and she sees an elderly man who was even older than her. And he says to her, Rachale? And she looks at him. Nobody had called her Rachale since she was a young girl. Not since the Germans, Yimach Shamam, had taken her away from every member of her family and murdered the entire town. She says to this man, who are you? The older man had lived near her parents in the same hometown and knew her entire family. She couldn't believe there was another survivor from her town. And everybody saw that something was going on near the mechitza. So the old man walked towards the band and he asked them to stop playing the music and can he have the microphone? And he said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you a story. When the Nazis, Yimach Shamam, arrived in our town, they forced all the Jews into a ghetto. And very quickly, people began to die from starvation and disease. Then one day, these huge notices were posted throughout the ghetto. Whoever fails to appear at the train station by 10 o'clock in the morning will have only himself to blame. He will be shot immediately. And everyone knew that the Germans wouldn't hesitate to shoot at anyone who disobeyed their orders. He said what we didn't know at the time is that the Germans intended on killing everyone anyway, whether they obeyed the orders or not. But people didn't know, so people hurried to the train station well before the appointed time, just to be on the safe side. But the man's father had no intention of arriving early. At 9:45 in the morning, the father called his son, and he said, "Please bring me my Shabbos shirt." And the young man was very surprised. His father was about to face possibly the end of his life, and he needs his elegant Shabbos shirt for that. But of course, if his father asked him, he was going to comply. And the son brought his father the Shabbos shirt, assuming that he would put it on quickly and they would rush out. But the father said, "Wait, it's not ironed. Go and iron it for me, please." The son started to wonder, maybe because of all the stress, chas v'shalom, his father had lost his mind. Ironing in those days wasn't just a matter of plugging in an iron into the wall. You had to heat up coals, and once the coals were hot, you had to put them in the iron, and you had to wait for the iron to heat up. By the time he was finished, it was already 10:15, and everyone knew the Germans would shoot anyone that wasn't there at 10 o'clock. But the father insisted, and the son lit the coals, waited for the iron to heat, and when he finished, he gave the shirt to his father, and the father said, "What's the matter with you? Did you forget how to iron? Where's the starch?" People would add starch, they do it still today, so that the cloth would become stiff. The father wanted his shirt starched as well, and the son was going to protest and say something to his father, but he brought the starch and ironed the shirt again, and now it was already 10:25, and the pressure was building, and the son was thinking, they're dead, what are they going to do? And the father says, the shirt's not good enough. The crease on the shoulder is not perfect. Iron it again. And so the son went over it again, and now it's 10:35. And the father puts on the shirt, and he says, perfect. You did a perfect job, my son. And he said, now where are my shoes? So the son ran to bring his father the shoes. But the father said to them, no, you have to polish them. Now today, polishing shoes, you take some liquid and spread it on, and that's it. But in those days, it was a thick, greasy ointment that you had to rub in again and again until it was absorbed, and then you had to brush it and buff it. His father told his son to polish the shoes, and the son did so respectfully. But now it was almost 11 o'clock, and the son's nerves were totally on edge. He gave his father the shoes, and the father said, not good enough, my son. The polish here is uneven. Do it again. And finally, at 11:15, the father was satisfied. He put on the shirt and the shoes, and he said to his son, very nice, my son. And then the father told his son, listen carefully, my dear boy. We are going now to the train station where the Germans told us to be. And we all understand that they're not taking us to someplace good. This might end very badly for all of us. And each and every parent wants their children to live and survive. Some people who have gold sewed it into the hems of their children's clothes, so that if they're separated, at least the child has gold to bribe his way to survival. Those who have food have given their children food, but I, my son, don't have gold or food left to give to you. But I want so badly for you to live and survive. So I'm giving you the mitzvah of kaved et avicha ve'imecha, that you should honor your father and your mother. Leman yarichun yamecha al ha'adama asher Hashem Elokecha noten lach, so that your days may be lengthened in the land that Hashem gives to you. And this is the mitzvah from the Torah, of course, of honoring your father and mother. Father said, I'm giving you this gift, which you did so beautifully and with so much self-sacrifice. And because this was such a difficult time for you and so stressful, in the merit of this, God willing, Be'ezrat Hashem, may Hashem protect you. And the old man who was telling the story, he said, I was sent to Auschwitz, and then after the war, I was sent to Siberia by the Russians. But through the merit of honoring my parents, I stand here today at this wedding, sharing this story with all of you. You know, gold and bread could be stolen, but the merit of the mitzvah of kibud av v'em, honoring one's father and mother, can never be taken from a person. The father was literally giving his son the ancient words that have protected the Jewish people for thousands of years. This wasn't just advice. This was a blessing that came through the mitzvah. The very words that God spoke at Mount Sinai. The Father understood something so profound about the nature of spiritual protection. When all the gold and bread is gone, and when human cruelty reaches the darkest places, the mitzvot that we perform with mesirut nefesh, with self-sacrifice, can create a shield of divine protection that transcends the physical world. That perfectly ironed Shabbos shirt was more than just clothing. It was a vessel for protection. Every stroke of the iron, every moment waiting while death approached, it was all the Father protecting his Son. May we merit to do the mitzvah of kibud av v'em, of honoring our parents, and may it in return bless us with long and healthy lives, children of our own and grandchildren and great-grandchildren that will all be blessed to do the same for us. I have one more very short story for you about Rabbi Aryeh Levine. Rabbi Aryeh Levine, who lived from 1885 to 1969, lived in my neighborhood in Nachlaot. There's a street named after him, and his house is there. And I knew one of his sons and his grandchildren, and I feel a great merit to live in the neighborhood that Rabbi Aryeh Levine lived in. There are, of course, many stories about Rabbi Aryeh. I'll just share a short one with you. This was in the days before the Six-Day War in 1967, where now we know the miraculous outcome of the war. But at the time, people didn't know what was going to happen. I also lived next to Gan Saker, which is near the Knesset, and there they literally dug mass graves, thinking that there was going to be a second Holocaust during 1967. You know that the Nazis, the ones that survived the war, where did they go with all of that knowledge about building missiles and weapons of destruction? A lot of them went to Egypt in order to kill the Jews in the land of Israel, if you can believe it. And so, the Arab armies had gathered on every side, declaring their intention to destroy the Jewish state. And Israel was very young and not so strong in those days. And people came to the great tzaddik, Rabbi Aryeh Levine, and they said to him, "We want you to curse our enemies that want to destroy us. Curse them all." And Rabbi Aryeh looked at this group that came to him and he said, "My sweetest friends, never in my life have I cursed someone. Even now, in this very difficult time, I cannot bring myself to curse even our enemies. Since my whole life I only bless people, also now I'm going to bless Nasser. I bless him that he should merit to see the victory of the Jewish people against our enemies." And so the blessing of Rabbi Aryeh Levine came true. Within just 6 days, Israel had a miraculous victory in the Six-Day War, defeating all of the armies that had gathered to destroy them, and Nasser merited to see the victory of the Jewish people against him. And just as a side note, which I think is really fascinating, since I'm a bit of a student of history, Nasser died only 3 years later of a heart attack in 1970. And Levi Eshkol, who was the prime minister during the Six-Day War, also died of a heart attack in 1969, just 2 years after the war. And it just shows you how stressful these times were. And of course, we are now in the midst of an existential war, which sometimes seems a bit strange because you walk around the streets of Jerusalem at least, and everything seems normal. But of course it's not, and it hasn't been, since before the establishment of the state. And so may we merit that the blessing of Rabbi Aryeh continue in our day as well, that our enemies merit to see the victory of the Jewish people. Just like we had miracles back then, may we have miracles today. Be'ezrat Hashem. Thank you so much for listening, as always, my sweetest friends. Thank you, as always, to all of the supporters of the podcast. Thank you very much for your support. It's what enables me to set aside the time to record and edit these stories. And thank you, of course, to all the listeners, because what's a podcast without listeners? So thank you very much, and thank you for writing to me and sharing everything with me. And I hope you have a beautiful Shabbos and a beautiful week. And until next week, my sweetest friends, take care of yourselves, and sei gesund.